Law Talk with Nick Maruchak. Thanks to MKI Legal, your trusted employment and family lawyers.
I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Nick Maruchak is with us from MKI Legal. Good to see you, Nick.
Good to be here. Sorry.
Yeah, let's have a chat to our listeners about matters legal. Phone in 1333 882. I wouldn't mind having a chat to you about Nagi versus Brookie. This is the caramel recipe, caramel slice recipe. It continues into its second day, and Nagi's hit back and Brookie's hit back, and so it goes. And can you get in trouble for plagiarising a recipe, particularly a recipe that is there probably aren't that many different ways of doing caramel slice, if that makes sense. We'll get to that in just a sec, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know you got some thoughts on it.
Yes, I do.
Still making news today, and it's a $30 million industry, this. This is, it's big bucks. G'day, Dan. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Bowie, Nick, thanks for taking my call today.
No worries.
Look, I'm just in the middle of a breakup of my marriage and just going through a divorce and property settlement. During our marriage, my ex was organising a lawsuit against the hospital for some injuries she sustained, and that's in the process of happening, and probably, there'll be a large payout in the next year or two, plus possibly even sooner. I'm just wanting to find out, because a lot of it was medical complications that contributed to her downfall of her mental health and the breakdown of our marriage. I'm just wanting to know if I'm possibly entitled to any portion of that payout, and if there's any precedent to that you're aware of.
So Dan, there are a number of precedents. So the simple answer to the question is yes, you're entitled to a portion of it, because when you divide assets of the relationship, you divide all the assets that each party owns, and this payout will be an asset. This is a special category of asset that the family court will look at. When it comes to these type of personal injury claims, there's lots of precedents for them. They're separated into two main parts. One is some of the compensation will go to lost income, so past lost income and future lost income. That is something that you're more likely to get a portion of. There's another part of the asset which is injury, compensation for pain and suffering. So that is the physical, medical condition that you've suffered, the bodily harm that your partner suffered. That sometimes is harder to get. So, and it also depends on what stage of the relationship it comes in. If it comes towards the end of the relationship, maybe you get a little bit less. So this is something that, yes, you are entitled to. It just depends how much, depends of the apportionment of the settlement. And when you go through family court process, you can apply for something called disclosure. So you can ask her for all the documents, all the negotiations, all the settlement deeds, everything that's going through. But this is something you probably want to get a little bit of legal advice on, just to work out what's a fair split.
Is the amount known yet, Dan?
No, we know it's going to be three figures, going to be quite high. 6 figures, sorry, I think I said three. It's going to be quite big, so it's going to be a big six-figure settlement, because it's against one of the big company, north of northern suburbs as such. But so it started, probably 3 or 4 years before we got a marriage breakdown. So it's been going on for a while, and that's why it's getting close to settlements. And their lawyers are saying that I'm not entitled, and that I have to show precedent. So that's why I was curious to know. So that sounds like good news anyway.
Got a lawyer, mate?
I do. I do at the moment. Yeah, costing me a fortune.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt. So, thanks, Dan. I've never heard of that before. That's a legit question, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of precedents.
So, with the timing of the announcement of the payment and the receipt of the payment important in all of this, or does it go back into the marriage period? Yeah,
so when assets are received, is also timing is quite important for any asset. So even a redundancy payment, an inheritance, a personal injury, if it's towards the end of the marriage, it can be interpreted differently. But no doubt the wife's lawyers will be saying, "Oh, you're not entitled to it," so they'll be putting him to proof. But yeah, lots of commentary on this issue. Yeah. It's well established.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for your call. Good luck to you, mate. And all and sundry. G'day, Graham.
How you going, guys?
G'day, mate. Good.
Well, I bank with Bankwest, right? And now they've gone digital, right?
Yep.
I went to use my card, and it said stop credit. This is around Christmas time. And then I said to the girl at the Commonwealth, what's the story? And she said, I have to ring up. So I go and ring up. And they said, oh, we've stopped you because you haven't filled any forms in. And I go, what forms? And we said, we sent them out months ago. And then we sent you text. And I said, I haven't got any of that stuff. So they go, okay. And then they said, we'll give you a time to do this stuff and we'll send some more out. But I said, well, did you ever think about ringing me up and saying, have you got this stuff, right, to organise or whatever? Because I don't want to do digital banking. So anyway, I didn't do anything, and then now they've stopped me again. How can they stop me when it's my money to get out of my account?
Good question.
Yep. So there is a way to progress this. You would need to go to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, right? So they're the organisation that handles disputes with lenders and banks. So when it comes to stopping getting your money out, that's an issue that AFCO can deal with. What you normally do is you will normally lodge a complaint internally with the bank, tell them about this, get them to investigate it, they'll do a review. And then if you're unhappy with the result, then you normally go to AFCO and you have to do that within 2 years of the decision being made. So that's the way to go forward. Can the whole question of going digital, that's probably a broader question than I can answer. But it's certainly, there are some things that the bank has to provide to customers, access to money, whether you can go so far as to challenge the decision for them to close their branches and stuff like that is a stretch. But bad customer service, blocking your access to money, they're things that you potentially can do.
Graham, can I ask you this, and I'm not necessarily advocating for this, can you change banks, mate? Or would you consider changing banks?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to, but I can't get the money out that is in Bankwest now.
Yeah.
When I rang up and they just stopped me again, they went the first time they just stopped me, right?
Yeah.
And then they said, "We'll give you a bit of lay time."
Yep.
And because I didn't fill out or do the forms what they wanted to, because I had because of other things, you know what I mean?
I do.
Then they just stopped me again, and I said, why don't you ring me up and say you're going to stop me? What if I was going shopping and then they stop my account, which they have? I don't understand how it can be my money and I can't get it out.
Yeah, I don't either, Graham. This is if that's you as well. We knew Bankwest was going digital. So does your card not even work, Graham? You can't go to another ATM and use your Bankwest card.
No, if I go any Commonwealth ATM, it just comes up declined. And when I bring them up, they go, well, we're not going to give it to you until you fill these forms out. And I said, it's my money, mate. It's my money.
Yeah. So probably try fill out the forms. Try fill out the forms first, because it's going to, if you can just fill out the forms and get your money, it's probably going to be easier for you to do that than going through the whole process of AFCA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what I can say about AFCA is banks don't like it when you go to AFCA. It's probably a little bit of a secret because they have to pay AFCA's fees and stuff. So I'm not saying abuse that, but just and
Graham, I'm not going to offer you personal advice, obviously, but maybe just fill out the forms or get someone to help you to fill out the form. I understand the principle; it's your money, but maybe just do it and get on with it.
Because AFCA will look at fairness. They'll look at is it reasonable for them to make you fill out the forms, and then they'll make a decision on that. You can get compensation for a bit of pain and suffering as well out of that process. So that's what they'll look at. But if they're blocking access to money, well, that's not on. Yeah, that's definitely infringing a lot of the laws. But it sounds like here's just a simple form.
Yeah, all right, Graham. Good luck, mate. Keep us posted. Hey, thank you for calling. That's not good. 17 and a half minutes to 11 o'clock. If you want to phone in, you can. John, stay there, mate. We'll get to you in just a second. If you do have a legal question, Nick Maruchak is in the studio today taking your calls. And are you a Bankwest customer who's like Graham, where you're getting semi-blocked by the CommBank? They're making you fill out forms. A form's a form. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long. And there are still people who are resistant to digital banking. People like my mother, for example. Hello, Jackie, if you're listening. 16 minutes to 11. We'll come back in just a moment. Glenn called in and said the same situation happened to him. He's happy with the process because it adds another layer of security. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for your thoughts, mate. Back in a sec. Thanks very much for listening in today. Nick Maruchak is with us from MKI Legal. G'day, John.
G'day, how you going?
Good, mate.
I just wanted to ask something sort of specific to the family court system, but it also covers in broader areas. So in the family court system, most have dealt with it. Every second bloke I've worked with or friends have dealt with it. Incredible delays. So it can take years, 5 years to get to a trial if you actually get to a trial. A lot of matters are dropped quite close to trials. Specifically in regards to perjury and things like contempt of court, if you do a 2-second Google search, you'll see the severe fines, imprisonment penalties, all that sort of other stuff. Other jurisdictions are quite serious about this and hold people accountable. But in the family court, there's already the subjective he said, she said side. There's subjectivity over contributions, all that sort of stuff. But even when someone is shown to black and white lie in front of a judge or a magistrate, a lot of this is washed away along through the process. And if you've dealt with this process, it very much adds to the delays. I'm wondering, I suppose, from an opinion point of view, if you're a cynical person, you might think, well, if people are just allowed to lie and say whatever they want, it basically means the lawyers stay on the payroll a lot more. And a lot of us would think that's exactly why it's allowed to continue. I'm just after an opinion of why is perjury, things like contempt of court, very much washed aside, and lawyers are known to drop their clients close to trials because they know that at the trial some accountability can be shown. But why is it ignored for literally years along the way, even when someone's shown to black and white be lying?
Great question. So there's a few things. One is when in the court system, it's often he said, she said, and it comes down to the credibility of the person. And so I often don't see perjury charges at all, right? Because sometimes it comes down to a difference of opinion between the two parties, and the court just has to make a decision. Perjury is a high threshold. You have to prove that they knowingly made a false statement under oath. So if you can prove it black and white, which is a really high bar to get to, you report that to the police, then the police has discretion on whether to prosecute or not. That's how they do it. So I haven't seen it. Most of the time when people accuse the other person of lying in court, it's really just difference of opinion. And sometimes people don't say it knowingly. Their memory is flawed, and sometimes they may have a different recollection of how things happen. So in order to allow justice to happen, everyone to have their say, the courts, you have some scope of room to allow before it gets to perjury. So perjury, I haven't seen it myself, even though we've seen lots of cases where people are lying. Really hard to convince a judge. There is also contempt of court powers. As someone like the court can fine people and do all that kind of stuff if you mislead the court. So there is those powers as well. And I also say there's also duties of lawyers. As a lawyer, it's actually unethical to run a case and to mislead the court. So if my client tells me something and then my client says something different to the court in the stand, or my client asks me to further a lie, I have to step down. I can't further that. Otherwise, the lawyer can get disciplined and get in trouble. So as a lawyer, your first duty is to the court, make sure the administration of justice happens properly, make sure that you don't mislead the court, and the second duty is to the client. So
good answer, Nick. John, I don't know if that helps, but it's frustrating, and it's called the no-fault divorce system in Australia. It's designed to keep the process moving quickly and freely, and there are often aggrieved parties at the end of once the result is known, isn't it, Nick? It's not uncommon. Thanks, John. Good luck to you, mate. Sam, hello.
Hi. Yes, thank you for taking my call. I'm calling regarding my daughter. She had to cancel her wedding. There are the venues and the photographers, and for the DJ, everything, we paid some money for deposit. And for the big amount is for the venue, we paid about 17 grand for there. Altogether 41 grand, the money everywhere. So we had to cancel on the venue. I think the agreement. My daughter has signed the agreement. In there saying that within if we canceling anything, it has to be before 1 month. But we were only 5 days in that month, so we are short of 5 days. So yes, they are saying that they can't give the refund, but they said they can reschedule a date, but
they can reschedule but won't refund. Hey, Sam,
yeah.
what's the amount we're talking about?
For the venue, we paid about 17 grand.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
But
because-
you
yeah.
are in breach of the cancellation period. Gee, that's tricky, isn't it?
Yep. So when it comes to these breaches, there's a few things. One is that the venue has to do something called mitigate their losses, right? So the venue has a duty to try and reduce the harm that's done. Simple answer here is they have to try and rebook. So the first question you should ask is, were you able to rebook the night and recover your losses? If they're able to do that, then when it comes to breach of contract, you're really looking at the innocent party's losses. So if they rebooked, got the same money from somewhere else, then there's an argument to be made here that, well, their losses are very minimal and then a potential refund is entitled. So it really comes down to how much money they lose by the cancellation. So do you know if they rebooked? And the second question is this. A deposit can't be extravagant, right? A deposit usually, a rule of thumb is like 10% or 20% max, but it has to be a genuine pre-estimate of the losses, right? So in a contract, you can't have a penalty. So you can't fine people for breaching contract. All they have to do is make, when you're putting these deposits down, you have to go, well, what is my loss if they breach the contract? And so what was the total price of the whole?
The whole, for the venue is 17 grand deposit. And other photographers and everything of 5 grand, 7 grand, some, yes.
But the venue's total cost, the deposit was 17,000, but what was the total fee?
No, I'm not sure. I think about 30,000 or something.
Okay, so the deposit here seems a bit high as well, right? It's closer to 50% than the 10. So you could argue, one, is the deposit's exorbitant, right? It's not a genuine pre-estimate of the loss. I'm entitled to some of it back. Ask them if they rebooked. And recover their losses, because you can't get a windfall, and then try and pursue that. Then what you can do is you can make a claim through the Magistrates Court. I've had someone actually go through this. One of my friends did this. He cancelled months out, and they were able to rebook. They didn't give the money back. He went to the Magistrates Court, did a minor case claim, and even just by writing the claim out, like filling out the court form, sending it to them, telling them to go to court, he just got the money back straight away.
Yep.
But here, Sam, just be careful that your money is, your claim, if it's over $10,000, that means that if you take this to court and you lose, you might have to pay their legal costs. So you want to try and negotiate with them first. Go to the Magistrates Court website, download the Form 3, fill it out, and send it to them and say, look, these are my legal arguments, and see if that works. If that doesn't work, then potentially look at looking at filing the claim. And if you're concerned about costs, reduce it under 10 grand.
Sam, any chance of rescheduling, or is it not going to happen?
Not going to happen. Yeah, but if she wants to reschedule, it has to be different place, not there. So because she have the memories there, so she don't want to go there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for letting us know. Well answered, Nick. Good luck with it, mate. 2020, and Nagi publishes in online, I think, a caramel slice recipe. 2024, Becky comes along and she publishes something that looks remarkably similar. The Cake Gate Wars, the caramel slice wars, continue today. What area of law does seemingly copying someone's recipe fall into?
It falls under copyright law here. I just must disclose I'm a big fan of Nagy. I have both her books. I cook her recipes all the time. So I'm on the side of Nagy, but I've seen the two recipes side by side, and they are very, very similar. They're almost word for word. So, but obviously Brooke Bellamy has a defence and said she came up with that recipe independently, so that's a fair defence. But when it comes to copying recipes, here are the kind of facts you need to know. You can easily copy. So copyright protects the idea, it protects the expression, right? Not the actual idea. So you can actually. There could have been a clever way to copy this if she wanted to copy it, because you can actually copy the ingredients lists, right? The baking the cake is not protected, so the ingredients list that's a fact. You can copy that. You can even make up it's the words on the page that are the problem. So if you just copy the exact steps but just describe it in a different way in your own unique words, that can probably be a way around it, right? Okay. So recipes have very little protection, basically. What's protected is the original expression, right? So the copying something exact word for word, you're gonna fail. But you can take the ingredients, you can also put your own method in, and that's what should have been done, and that's generally okay.
Yeah,
So,
right. We'll leave it there, mate. We've run out of time. Thanks, Nick. Thank you very much for talking to our listeners with wisdom and expertise and care. Look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good week, mate.
thank you, Bowie.
Nick Maruchak from MKI Legal. When we come back after the news, I'll bring you up to date on our poll today. Is risk-taking a human right? And Mick Collis will join us. Stay listening.